Welcome to Point to Rise, your podcast that gives you permission to dream big, take messy action, and turn your talent into profit while turning your back on perfection. My name is Susanne, high performance and mindset coach, former international ballerina, profitable entrepreneur, and founder of Point to Rise, a movement designed to empower dancers. It is my mission to use my own story as an inspiration for today's generation of dancers. And now sit back, stretch, warm up, or zip your coffee and love learning how much it matters to point at yourself first to rise to all that you are capable of. Hello and welcome back to the show. I am so happy to have you right here with me today. Our guest today is Shannon Lee Whalen. Shannon is an East Coast race turned West Coast transplant. She's a former dancer that turned fitness enthusiast, and she founded Get Inspired Fitness LLC as a residential fitness company in late 2011, Shannon having a lot of time to manage, which eventually led to exploring her own habits and behaviors. She thought working from home, running her own company was the dream and should have made her happy, but she wasn't. Welcome to the show. I'm so grateful that we did manage a time to arrange to do this interview, have a conversation. You and I met through a friend. And it always, over and over and over again has proven to me how not only important, but how valuable connections and community really truly are.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it is amazing just how much we connected so quickly too. So it was definitely a divine intervention for us to to have a conversation together. And now we're here. So I'm very excited to be here too.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, really hard question, but let's get it out of the way, particularly for artists. They
Yeah.
start to squirm. What's your superpower?
With my superpower.
Yeah.
Oh, my superpower is connecting people actually. I love finding people that need certain things that other people have and just saying like, hey, why don't you two go talk about that and see what happens? And then I also am pretty intuitive. So I utilize that as part of my practice with the work that I do. And it's really fun tapping more into that. Like it's never not exciting. I don't know why I said it in the negative, but it every single time it just gives me like that the chills of confirmation or anything like that. It's always exciting to know like, oh, I am tapped into this and I am picking up on things more and more and more. So that would be one of my superpowers.
Wow, you didn't squirm. Bravo.
I did not.
Not even a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your biggest fear, my love?
Oh, my biggest okay, so this is interesting. I had this huge download last night of a stand-up skit that I wrote out. And I've always loved stand-up comedy. And now that it's out there and I've told 2 of my friends who are pursuing stand-up comedy, I feel like they're going to make sure I get on stage, and I'm terrified.
Wow.
Um,
You would really identify that as your biggest fear to be on the stage and do something you've never done before?
Yes. I even part of the bit that I wrote was about how one of people's biggest fears is public speaking over death. And I would argue that stand-up comedy is probably higher than that because trying to be funny publicly is more terrifying than just speaking publicly, in my opinion, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Wow. Why do you think that is? Why do we think why and I can identify to that version that was afraid of public speaking. And I think I find many introverts are actually afraid of public speaking.
Mhm.
So why is that? Does that really just have to do with something in us that we are feeling like we shouldn't share our message, or what is it?
I think it's fear of judgment. If we're really hard on ourselves and we're hard on other people, and then if you feel like that's how you are and you go stand in front of people, that you're going to get all of that judgment back toward you. If you say something stupid, if you misspeak, if you don't, I don't know, anything could happen. Stutter, get mixed up, lose your space and wherever you're, whatever you're talking about. Who knows?
Forget what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Did you know that Mel Robbins' very first TED Talk, it was back when TED Talk wasn't what it is now, but she was able to improvise her TED Talk in a way that, oh, and I forgot to tell you. So she tagged on like 5 minutes at the end of her TED Talk
Okay.
that never written, she never went through with them and just went for it. A woman that was really not very much into public speaking herself at that point.
Mhm.
So, for me, that was, like, the best example of, "Hey, anything is possible."
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that it, like, just like anything, we just have to do it to overcome it. Everything that feels really big and scary, the second we shed light on it or call it out for what it is, it allows us to ease and really sink in back into our bodies and not let the emotions or the fear start taking control. And actually, that's exactly what we do with hypnobreathwork. So it's really cool. It's like sitting and visualizing the experience and allowing yourself to feel all those nerves and all of that, whatever fear and everything, and just letting yourself feel it and let it go before actually putting yourself in the situation. So if people have fear of public speaking, we can do some hypnobreathwork with them and help them.
Like, how
That
about
was let's segue.
I think we just solved your problem of your biggest fear as well. So, more of that, lovey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
It'll happen. I'll let you know when I get up there.
I'll be there. If it's in LA, girl,
Yeah,
yeah.
perfect.
Before we dive into what you're doing now and where all of that came from, what's your definition of success?
My definition of success would be feeling completely satisfied and fulfilled by what you do in your life and who you are.
And when you say do in your life, does that mean like the everyday? Because I'm asking the question. I was asked yesterday, "Hey, how was your weekend?" And I'm like, "Ugh," like I'm so tired of the okay, we're working 5 days to have 2 days to do what we want to do, right? Like I think that's absolutely ridiculous, and I despise that whole mindset or the whole belief that that's how your life has to be. So what I said is actually, if you mean weekend, I do what I want to and I relax, then actually every single day in my life is filled with exactly what I want to do. So therefore, every single day is a weekend for me. And that woman literally turned away from me. Like, yeah, like that's possible, and left. And I'm like, oh wow, okay. So
I'm with you. I believe that is possible. And I truly do believe that like whatever it is that you want to do, if you're called to a mission of sorts or to serve in some way that lights you up, it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like you get to do something you love to do. So even if you want to look at the structure that we have in society of the 5 day work days and the 2 days off, I don't really go by that. I could have nothing scheduled on a random Tuesday and be happy to pack my Saturday full of things that I love doing, even though it's work. It just flows with whatever is my desire. If I have a day that I want to go do something, and sometimes I do that because there's less people around on a Tuesday. Right, we want to go out, and I really get like I don't understand myself when I end up at the grocery store on a Saturday ever. But, it's just easier to go do things when everybody is not trying to do it all at once. And so I have kind of just flipped that around of like, okay, so some days during the week, I want my freedom. And then I'm happy to work during the weekend if that's the case, or I don't have to. But that's the beauty of being able to create your own life on your own terms in a way that really does fulfill. And I love that example you gave of like, okay, 5 days on, 2 days off, which is just a structure that was created. It doesn't mean that that's how everybody's energy flows. And so, really being able to tap into that for yourself and create something that does work for you. And again, like I just said, it might not be the same every week. We're not on this like schedule every week of, oh, these are the days I'm off. These are the days I work hard. Sometimes I get bursts of energy late at night and I'll just bang out a bunch of stuff real quick between 8 and 11 o'clock. And other times, like I'm in bed by 9, but I just go with the flow of that. And I'm inspired by the things that I do. So it doesn't bother me to put the time up and effort in at random times like that.
I love that. Yeah. And isn't that really not being taught either in school or anywhere else that, it's a possibility you can live your life like that? It's being taught as oh, that is what, the rich and famous do, perhaps, which is not true, by the way. This is what the outsiders do. And we're not like more and more and more do we have really learned, and particularly because of the pandemic, that all of these stories are actually false and we have created them and we oh so bluntly followed them, and now is really the time to change that. I think all of us are really witnessing a huge shift, even if I may say, like a revolution in every kind of aspect on how we live our life. Like if you just look at how many coaches there have, evolved over the last 2 years, how many new businesses, how many startups are out there, how many new ideas, and how many more people are courageous enough to now ask, well, what if we change this? What would it look like? And I think that is so powerful, and I'm so thrilled to be part of this time.
Yeah, me too. And I agree too. I don't think it's being taught. I think what is being taught in school is to follow that model of going into that 9 to 5 structure.
Yeah.
So it's really just setting people up for that and to stay into that programming, into that system. So I think it's really fun to watch people shifting out of that. I love supporting people to shift out of that and to see that they're capable of it and to start to really light up about who they are and what they do. Like there's nothing that brings me more joy than seeing that in somebody. So yeah, I think it's the coolest time to be alive.
Wow. That's very powerful. Okay, let's pivot a little bit. And
Sure.
I would love you to share a little bit of your journey in the performing arts and how you actually ended up teaching breath work.
So performing arts, I was put in dance class at 2.5. Yeah, my mom danced and she put my sisters in the studio, and I was in there until I was 18. I was part of the company and became a competitive dancer by the age of 10. And I carried that with me through high school. I was on the dance team. I was the captain of my dance team. I took classes in college, but I didn't pursue it in college. And I would choreograph and teach for our theater program. So that's like my basis, my foundation of the arts. It was really dance based. I also love to sing. I didn't really pursue it as much. Now I really just sing in my car. But music and movement and singing really just bring me so much joy. And there's something magical about music. And so it's another reason why I really love working with people that are in the entertainment industry that are connected to dance and music in that way. How did I get into breath work? So I started a training to become a coach right before 2020. In one of our trainings, we had a breathwork facilitator come in. And I had done breathwork before, and I had had this knowing that eventually I was going to have to start doing breathwork. I don't know why, but I did. But my first experience with breathwork was so intense. I was like, I'm not ready to do this. And so I avoided it. And then we had this session on the beach with this woman named Francesca, and she's the creator of Hypnobreathwork. And so after having that, I started following her journey through Instagram. And one of the people that was in my training with me ended up starting to work with her and started to go through some of the courses that she had available. And I was just seeing what was going on with them and decided to jump on some of the community calls that other coaches were having that are connected to the Hypnobreathwork community. And it was just a really different and profound experience. Um, Part of the reason it was really intense for me, if you're not familiar with breathwork, is because it can cause buzzing or tingling or cramping, mostly in your hands. And I tell people this to not freak you out, but I had it in my entire body. The first 2 times I was like locked up entirely. And it was just a lot of trapped energy, trapped emotions, which now it makes perfect sense because I would always just like shove it down. Don't feel it. Don't show your emotion. Don't be weak. That was what I got. Don't be weak. Don't show that. Don't let them know they can get to you. I just had this wall up. And so once I started working more closely with them and they told me like I shake it out, move it, and all of that, it released it. And then that's when I started to get more and more insights and start to follow that. And that's what we do at Hypnobreathwork is we're tapping into our intuition. We get intuitive action steps, take those action steps, even if they don't make sense, because our intuition doesn't make sense. It's not logical. But when you follow those steps, like things start to unfold like you wouldn't believe. Like it literally feels like magic starts to happen, like falling out of the sky, connection, like this connections that with people that you're like, I had no idea I even needed to meet you, or oh my gosh, you're the perfect person I was looking for to do X, Y, Z. So that's my journey from performing arts. And then there's a gap in there. I own a fitness company that I ran for 10 years and then wanted something more fulfilling to do with my life. And that's why I pursued coaching, which quickly led me into hypnobreathwork. So yeah, that's how we got here.
Yeah, that's how we got here.
Yep.
Okay. When we first jumped on the call, you shared something with me that was mind blowing to me. It's a study about people and their creativity.
Yeah.
Now, let's and I when you shared, I also want to like explain why. Maybe let's dive into why creativity is actually so important
Mhm.
and why we need it. Not only, let's say, in the performing arts space, but everywhere. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to take that? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, creative thinking, creative problem solving within any company or organization to literally create a new paradigm like this, like we were talking about earlier, the structure of 9 to 5. It's not working for a lot of people, or maybe they don't realize it, but they're just going through the motion, right? We're just caught on autopilot. And that's not, to me, that's not life. That's not why we're here. That's not experiencing the fullness of life. And so I think being able to tap into your creativity, to think outside of the box is really profound in how we can redesign that for people and companies. But regardless, it's not like you're saying, it's not just in the performing arts. It's not just like painting and dancing and music. It is in companies and organizations of like creative ways to connect to the people who would utilize the product or service that you're creating. Doesn't just have to be, yeah, like, oh, I painted a mural on a wall. Like I'm part of an app right now. It's a hypnobreathwork app called Matchstream, and we're literally working on a new the creating the new evolution of it to better serve people, to better find more people. And so that takes a lot of creative thinking and problem solving. And without that, it's kind of like, you might see this as opposed to seeing 360.
Mm. So I want to share something about Netflix. Okay. You think about that company, whatever you want to. The founder, Joe, has written a book. It launched in 2020 called The No Rules Rule. Okay. And I can only recommend it to anybody that's either looking for a job or has their own company and wants to build a strong team.
Yeah.
The essence of the book and the reason why Netflix was so successful and that when he wanted to be, bought out by Blockbuster, that didn't happen in 20, what was it? 2001, I believe. That was their biggest blessing because Blockbuster really shut down in 2010. They had to file for bankruptcy. The reason why that was such a huge blessing is in the 2001 cut study he had to make, he realized that they really went through every employee and really looked at their level of talent, meaning how creative were they? Or were they just average or were they high achievers? Okay. And what they did, they put all the high performers in one bucket. So all of a sudden, the team was only full of high performers. They call it a high density talent pool.
Mhm.
And what they found within 6 months that their revenues skyrocketed, that the company all over a sudden just took off with less people than they had. And the reason for that is that when high achievers are in one room together, they tap into each other's creativity
Oh yeah.
and they start coming up with solutions because nobody's complaining, nobody is focusing on problems, and everybody is just there for the greater good.
Yes.
When you have those, they call it the average performers in the room between high performers, they actually make the entire team an average performer. So, with that said, when we're looking at, let's say, the performing arts or any other company that's out there, the reason why they either not able to pivot or to survive or to evolve is because they're employing base teams,
Mhm,
because the leaders are not tapping or allowing them to tap into creativity.
mhm.
So can you share that the results of that research, because I found that so profound.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so this is from the what is this? The EOC Institute, and so it says that where did we go? 1,600 5-year-olds were tested to see how they scored on the Creative Genius test, and 98% of them scored at the Creative Genius level at the age of 5. So the scientists were captivated by these results, and they decided to do a longitudinal study. So they tested the same kids 5 years later, so when they're 10 years old, and they found that only 30% of those children scored at the same level. And then by age 15, that number dropped down to 12%. So disturbed by that and also intrigued, they decided to go ahead and find out what would happen if they tested adults. So they found 280, yeah, 1,000 year olds or older, and only 2% of that subset of society scored on the creative genius level. So they confirmed that creativity is not learned, but it's rather unlearned, that we come in tapped into that creativity, and that by being put into systems, being put into boxes, being put into like these ways of being have shut people's creativity down because they're not encouraged to go explore, to go find out and do things on their own. It's learn this, memorize that, get a good grade on this test, do well in school, get a good
Brutal. Cruel. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So the article goes on to talk about how meditation can help to get you out of that thinking mind and really get you back into your feeling and bring more of that creativity, getting like those neural pathways firing up in your brain to bring some of that creativity back. And if that happens with meditation, I said if you add breath work with hypnosis and visioning to the meditation, then we're really going to find some like creative juices flowing from people in this practice. So I don't know if I said this already, but creativity is my specialty within hypno breathwork and within mastery. So that's why this article just really was so impactful to the work I'm doing and the course I created to help basically reignite people and break their creative boundaries. And again, it's not just creating something like an art piece or like a dance or a show or something like that. It's like, I want you to create the life that lights you up through your gift, but also like through the way you want to live your life. If you want, like you're saying, you want to work for 3 days and take the rest of the week off, how do you create that so it flows? Or are you somebody that wants to work every day of the week and you don't need time off? Like whatever that looks like, I want to help guide people toward that. So I went a little off track from the article.
Wonderful. You already built the bridge that I wanted to create. Beautiful. So then tell us, why is breath work so essential in tapping back into our creativity? Like, what is actually happening when we're practicing that?
So breath work connects you to the subconscious, and it's part of the autonomic nervous system. And it's the only part of our autonomic nervous system that we actually have conscious control over. The rest of it is unconscious. So that's, you start to sweat, your heart's beating fast. Those are things that just happen. We don't go, oh, make my heart beat fast. We might be able to do that if we really wanted to like work ourselves up. But typically it starts to happen if we're nervous or we're put in a situation that catches us off guard. And that's what happens. So luckily we breathe unconsciously, but also we can control our breathing. And when we do that, we're able to reset our nervous system by accessing that subconscious mind and really just allowing us to come out of fight or flight. So a lot of people over the last few years have been in fight or flight. We have been in uncertain times, like anxiety is high. And if we don't have a way to reset that for ourselves, we're just sort of living at this state instead of at like a neutral state. The breath work can help us come out of that. And I mean, even just think like this example, thinking of if we're all worked out, how creative do you feel when you feel forced, pressured, or anxiety? I don't feel creative when I'm anxious. So if we, number one, can reset in that way, it helps us just to like open up and let things flow a little bit better. But also, when we talk about creativity, that can be very vulnerable because it's like you're sharing something that is coming from a part of you. And that piece of wondering what people are going to think, are they going to like, am I going to be accepted? Is like my whole thing is like, is it stupid? Like the whole comedy thing I wrote last night, I'm like, does it make sense or is it stupid? I don't know. But we'll figure it out by taking the action. But that can get in the way and paralyze people. And so we can rewire the neural pathways in the brain by going into breath work and visualizing doing that thing. Like this is it's so funny that I did this last night and now I have this conversation with you. So after I wrote that, I went and did my performance anxiety session on the app and just visualized like, okay, what does it look like for me to get on stage and do comedy? And it was really interesting, the emotions I felt. I am terrified, but I was able to breathe through it and then calm myself down. And then by the time it was okay, visualize performing on stage, I was like, if I could get through the fear of it, I think that would be a really fun experience. And if we can put ourselves in that state, our mind doesn't know if we are actually experiencing it or if we're visualizing it. So if we put ourselves in that state when we're visualizing it and our nervous system is calm, then when we actually physically go into that state, we're not going to be so easily taken by our emotions, taken by the fear and the anxiety. So it just really helps to one, reset the nervous system, get us into a neutral state so that we're centered and focused. Two, start to rewire and will release any of those limiting beliefs that could be getting in the way. And then starting to rewire the neural pathways by experiencing it in your mind in a calm state. And then that just allows you to feel like, okay, once you get there, like, I can do this. I've done it before.
Oh, I love it. Hey, why do you think? I mean, breath work is like something that our great, 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 great grandmothers and fathers knew about. And somewhere along the line, it has become, or it moved up mainstream, I would say, culture or usage. Why do you think that is? And why are we tapping back into that?
Why did we move out of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that part of life becoming way more fast paced is probably contributing.
Mhm.
But I don't know because I agree with you that we have known about this because if we didn't know about this, we wouldn't be doing breathing exercises with women when they're giving birth.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So
And it's not only reserved for women in these high stress situations, right?
right. But it just like that to me go, yeah, that's exactly why we're breathing during labor. Like what else? Because it takes you out of just being in the pain and in the experience. And I mean, I have heard of women having euphoric experiences in labor. So, but I honestly, I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, it's way to turn that around. Well, I think as a society, we moved away from our intuition quite a bit, and we paid into what we describe maybe as reality, right? Like if you look at like the 50s and 60s and even 70s and how society was, the woman was there to serve the man and there was not it was all about getting out of the depression of the 20s and 30s and the war.
Mhm.
And I think somewhere in that line we completely forgot who we are as people and what makes us so special. And we totally were sold at making money and not saying that that's bad. No, it's just the way we're making it or way we were thinking of is the only way to make it.
Yeah. I mean, I do have opinions about some of this stuff. Just
Yeah,
I,
free.
I I don't think it's not intentional. I think that the structures that we have in place are in place again, like the school system that we know kills creativity. When we also know that creativity would help us to create a more harmonious place to live in a more harmonious society. I don't think it's a mistake that some of these things are in place. If we wanted people to be healthy and free and as creative to explore everything and fully experience the whole range of life and all that it has to offer, we would not be suppressing people the way that we are. We would not have a healthcare system that is for profit. We would not put people on drugs before we look at what they eat and what their lifestyle is, including doing breath work. Like why there isn't breath work in hospitals is beyond me. But also it makes so much sense when you look at all the other pieces where it's like, of course, you don't want people to know that this can heal so much. Like it can
Yeah.
seriously heal so much.
Well, and that's the intriguing point that you're bringing up is like, how much are we actually controlled and how much is, you know, actually been put in place to control us. I grew up in East Germany, so we exercise, the society exercise control on creating mini soldiers that do exactly as they're told to, right? And I also learned really quickly what happens when you don't fit in and what measurements and measures are being taken when you don't fit in.
Yep.
And I think we're teaching kids really early on in life to what happens when they don't fit in. We don't foster that because out of our own trauma or fear. So this model of creating the perfect soldiers has been perpetuated over generations. Now, with millennials coming in, they're like, you know what? I can learn how to build a crypto trading website in like 3 months. I don't have to go to college. I don't have to spend $250,000 that I don't want to spend. I can make them in an hour
Yeah.
by learning what is coming in and what's coming in on the Hajimali train,
Yep.
right? And really, really, really asking many better questions and challenging the status quo. And that takes, well, it takes courage. It takes mostly creativity.
Yeah.
And now it makes sense that we're actually not fostering creativity, but,
Yeah.
pushing it down. So,
To keep people working, to keep the system going. Like there is nothing wrong with any profession. There's a lot of things I would not want to do. There's a lot of things I think a lot of people don't want to do, but if we keep the system in place to keep people doing them.
yeah, and they're lashing out, right? And like they're not hurt people will always hurt people. I think that's the whole root cause of why we have so much crime and drama and pain in the entire world is because we're not allowing ourselves to either heal and or tap into our intuition and creativity
Yeah.
because it's had been cut off somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so funny. I saw something on probably on Instagram or something that was like, we could just all be like eating fruits and vegetables from the earth and like vibing out, listening to music and having fun and enjoying each other, but that's not what we chose. We chose to create an economy and to yeah. So it's
Mm,
just interesting because it's like when you really zoom out and look at it, we could have a completely different structure in life and a completely different experience for society. But, and then it's not to say that, in a negative way, it's to say that it is possible for you to create whatever reality you do want, even though I think that we're watching, like as we've been saying, we're watching that paradigm shift, which is why I think it's the coolest time. But yeah, it's kind of mind blowing.
wow. So where can people find you? How can people work with you if this was something that, people can relate to and they want to change the way, they're operating right now?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Shannon Whalen. You can find me on Mastery app as well. If you want to try out a hypnobreathwork session, there's about 20 coaches on there. I have a bunch of sessions on there to see if it's a good fit for you. And then if you wanted something one-on-one, you could reach out to me. I'd be happy to do that. I work over Zoom, so it doesn't matter where you're located. We can always connect and get a session in and help people to overcome whatever challenges are in their way from living that life they desire.
Mm. Last question, my love.
Mhm.
Let's assume you're 16 years old and you with everything that you've learned would be able to give her some advice or just have a quick connect with her. Assuming she sits down and listens to you, what would you tell her?
So what was the first part of what you said?
you as you today,
Mhm.
if you had the chance to talk to your 16-year-old self, what
My
would you tell
16
her? 16.
16-year-old Shannon, what would I tell her? One, for sure, I would tell her it gets better. I had a rough run in my teens. Um, I would tell her to never stop dancing and to believe in herself.
Yeah. I think that's for everybody, right? Like
Yeah,
we're so such slaves to the rules
sure.
and who and what we have to be in order to, I don't know, fit in or to succeed or whatever that is, or to do what we want to do, or to get the part that we forget who we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Or even in that piece of you talking about fitting in, I'll learn at a young age that if we don't fit in, what the repercussions are, and understanding the differences between fitting in and belonging as I've grown up is also very profound. Like, I don't want to fit in. It's uncomfortable if you have to mold yourself to fit into something that's not naturally you. And belonging is you get to be you, and that's where you get to be belong.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your time, Shannon.
Thank you. This is beautiful.
Thank you. As always, you guys go follow Shannon. The link to her Instagram profile is in the show notes and share with us what stood out to you, something that maybe really sunk in, maybe something that you completely disagree with. We want to know about it. We're sending you so much love. Till next time. Bye. Thank you so much for listening. If this message resonates with you, please pass it on to someone who needs to hear this right now. And if you like what you've heard, your feedback will go a very long way. If you just take 30 seconds and leave me a 5-star review, that would mean the world to me. Till next time, point at yourself to rise to all that you are capable of.